Director of Regional Transport Connections. So between Phil and I, we can cover this one off.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Morena Koto. As Janine said, I'm Phil King, the Director of Regional Transport for the Regional Council, for those of you who I haven't met previously. So just a couple of statements about the report. The agency undertakes a procedural audit every 3 years on top of an annual audit, financial audit that it delivers annually. The audit was undertaken in September and completed in December. And this is the first meeting of the Risk and Assurance Committee since that time. You'll note in the report that many of the actions identified were actioned in November, so before the end of the year. Probably the one I'll touch on to help answer any questions that you might have relates to the procurement procedure that was identified as significant improvement needed. The 4 or 5 comments I just want to make are that the team that previously had led that process was disbanded via a realignment that we undertook in November 2023. And we undertake those functions in a different way now and have done for some time. The awareness of the procurement manual is very much in the minds of that new team. The procurement strategy that we have to maintain for 3 years in advance and have on our Regional Council website has been extended as a result of the bus contract renewal process that we're undertaking. So we now have until March 2026 to complete that work, and we're working already on the process of doing that well. The other reflection is that several members of staff have completed the certificate in public sector procurement, and I have 2 members of the team now who are continuing on to complete the diploma in New Zealand public sector procurement, which will allow them to be NZTA qualified evaluators. So we'll have those resources in-house going forward. Yes, those are probably just some opening comments. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions from the committee? Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Phil, can you just explain the proposed changes, because you probably haven't tested them yet, between the old procurement system and the new one? Is it appropriate that you talk to us about that or not? Because I'm certainly most interested in the process that you're going to be following, because you've got these new contracts to be renegotiated. So I'm interested in what changes are being made between the old and the new.
Specifically in terms of procurement?
Yes.
So we're undertaking the technical work that will give us the elements to contain within future procurement at the moment. So we're looking at zero emission vehicle transition, land purchase, depots, chargers, vehicles. We are undertaking a load of technical work around future routes and delivery of services, and we are completing a Section 17A review as well. All of those things will be finished prior to the election, and in the August meeting of Council and the September meeting of Council, you'll receive a lot of information that sets out our plans for what the future of our bus network delivery will look like. From that time, those elements feed into the NZTA procurement strategy, which will then go into an improvement process ahead of that March 2026 date, and they will move into our contracts, which will go out to the market probably in January 2026. The inclusion of best practice in those contracts is going to be a very key way of maintaining effective oversight of the delivery of our networks through the next 6 to 9 to 10 years, in terms of a refresh of the monitoring we have of our operators and the KPI performance criteria that are set. We're using, at this stage, we're starting that work based on templates that have come out of Wellington, and the creation of those contracts is already underway. Now, the process of procurement will continue after those contracts go live in early 26, and from about May to June 2026, we will be going through a very thorough evaluation process using our in-house qualified, NZTA qualified assessors, as well as external resources as we need to. There is a whole probity process that sits alongside that, and those collectively will all end up coming to council for approval via Finance and Services Committee and then into full council due to their scale. So through the first 6 months of 26, there's a significant plan to ensure that we are procuring those contracts correctly.
Okay, so just a quick follow-up. The changes that have been made will address all the issues, the shortcomings that were identified in this report then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Angela.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Phil, for the report. Hey, just a couple of questions. Just specifically total mobility, is that all it's to be done, updated Q1 2025 in regards to the contracts of the total mobility operators? Can you confirm that that's
I understand that has been completed.
awesome? Cool. Next one, in the suggestions, it says consider allocating a dedicated financial resource to the transport activity. Can you, Janine, speak to that?
Yes, I can. And I'm surprised that that's been raised as a matter because we do have a dedicated resource to the activity. And there are other members of the team who have experience in preparation of claims. Now that's intermittent, but we do have a management accountant who is solely supporting the Regional Transport Directorate.
Oh, good to hear. Awesome, thank you. And then last one for you, Phil, around the patronage and the revenue in Super Gold, with the move to Motu Move nationwide ticketing, do you see that those issues that perhaps we've had currently and in the past should be resolved nationally?
So there are two aspects to the answer to that. The first is that from the end of March this year, we have a whole series of new quarterly reporting requirements to NZTA related to the calculation of the private share number going forward. And we're on track to deliver those and can complete those. Then into the national ticketing system, there are other aspects that will continue to change, but I believe that it will get us in a better place around all three of the items that you've raised there. But the combination of those two things, I guess, represents a evolution of the public transport operating model in its wider sense, and that's a change journey that the whole country's on at the moment. So we're a strong player in that, and we will continue to move at the pace the agency needs us to.
It's good to hear. Yeah, it's a great opportunity for yeah, good data around, you know, everything to come through. So yeah, looking forward to that. Thank you.
No other questions? Thank you very much. Can we have a mover and seconder, please, to receive the NZTA investment audit report? Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Angela. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 7.7, legal compliance survey.
And you're welcome to come and join the table and speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. I will take the report as read, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great progress from last time. It was really cool to see. Just a quick question was in regards to response from the EPA. It said it was due February or March for the Metzel Bureau. Has that come in yet, or are we still waiting on that? Do you know?
We are still waiting.
Thought that might be the
Understand.
case. Thank you. Just simple, but yeah, it's so good to see the numbers come down
Yeah.
quite substantially.
And certainly the participation in the survey as well. So I think that's
Definitely.
some of the work that Hannah's been doing of trying to signal when the survey is coming. So it should be a no surprises approach for staff to be able to complete it.
A statistician would find that, it's just amazing. Statistic.
Hannah, I'm a great believer in putting context around reports. Do they comply with people? Would they make available how WRC compares with other users of the system in terms of participation rates or other councils in terms of other metrics?
They haven't really released any information. I'm more than happy to ask if
Yeah.
they would be willing to share. It just depends on privacy reasons, but I think that they might be able to give us just a rough estimate of where we sit.
Yeah, it could be
compared to others.
anonymised, but
Yeah.
it's useful, I think, for the committees like this to have some, like with some of the other reports we knew
Yeah.
we'd,
Yeah.
where we stand.
Relativity, eh?
Yeah.
Especially with regional councils. But yeah.
We'll take that as an action.
I thought it was a good report.
Thank you very much.
I fail to see how other councils can not have this and still sign off. No more questions? Yeah. Thank you very much. Well done.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Hannah.
Thank you.
We have a mover and seconder then, please, to receive that report. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Chris. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Item 7.8, Infor benefit realisation tracking.
Kia ora, members. So I'll take the report as read, and it's largely obviously based on the feedback received in the December meeting when I presented all of the benefits for Infor, and the feedback, and appropriately so, was that it was quite complex and difficult to interpret. Not difficult to interpret, but more difficult to assess against. So in response, I've worked with the team to put together a model, which I'm presenting today, with the view that any feedback you wish to provide, we can then go away and tweak it accordingly. I've tried to meet the brief and keeping it simple and focused, and in doing so have focused on 7 key areas, so clumping those 33 outcome areas or benefit areas down to 7 core objective areas, which are described here: asset management, finance, global human resources, information systems, planning and rates, procurement, and staff satisfaction. And within in total of 20 monitors or measures, KPIs, if you wish, indicators, in total across the whole series of objectives. And being measured in a traffic light system, either has been met, is on track, or is not met. So the benefit owners are responsible for providing those updates, and the dashboard will be updated monthly and reported back quarterly to this committee, subject to your acceptance of the proposed approach. I guess, and also within the report, we talk about some of the activities that we've been undertaking with staff over recent weeks and months, primarily focused on training. Building the capability and the competency of our staff and being able to utilise the system. And that's progressing well. We're virtually completed our budget management sequence and about to commence in the very near future our contract management training piece, which will look at procurement and contract management and how to do that accurately and completely within the system. And that will be led by our contract manager, with support from our L&D staff. So that's quite a big piece of work, and that will then be followed on by our global HR training, how to use the HR component of the system, with some mop-up training around purchase orders, time sheeting, some just-in-time training around budget forecasting and reforecasting. So those are kind of the key focal areas for the remediation training. And there's also work going on in regards to improving the stability of the system and correcting any defects, the majority of which, the major ones, have been remediated, but there are continually minor adjustments and tweaks that we continue to make, and working closely with the business to make sure we understand what the business experience is like. You'll also see quite a detailed report around the staff satisfaction or staff sentiment scores around their, I guess, how they feel about the system and where it's going. And that was important to get a baseline and to do it in as objective a way as possible. All the other measures we've had up to now have been quite subjective and subject to a range of interpretations, such as pulse surveys and so forth. So in this survey, we're quite targeted and had a reasonable response of approximately a quarter of the organisation responding in the March period, whilst the window was open. And we'll continue to resurvey every 6 months from now on. So at least we've now got the baseline, and our expectation is that we'll see that improvement becoming more and more noticeable as the surveys continue. So look, I'm happy if you wish to show you the live dashboard. It's still in draft, if that helps, unless you're happy with what's in front of you on the paper. It's still in draft, yeah. So actually, so we're waiting for feedback, either today or subject to your further consideration of. I'll try and share my screen on my endeavour to, at least. So just increase the view. So this is how the dashboard looks as per what you're seeing in your hard copy on your pack. On this slide here has the full 20 measures displayed in a list format. So you can have a quick view and see across all the 20 measures. And like I say, these are in draft. They're not the actual hard data in here yet. So we've just, it works, but wanted to show you how it looks. And you have various tabs here where you can focus in on the completed, the on track, or those that are being monitored, and those that might be off track. So that's sort of at the high level view. And now I've got to figure out how to get back because it's not showing it to me on my screen here. Oh, here we go. Go back. Help, push that button. And theoretically.
Nev, sorry, can I just ask one question in terms of benefits? And apologies, I haven't sort of seen this detail, but I guess just the classification of the benefits around that cash releasing, qualitative differentiation, because obviously from a business case perspective, there were a number of cash releasing benefits that we were aiming to get, and just whether that's a useful lens to put across this as well.
Yes, so those are still captured in here, and primarily those were around software licenses and savings in that space, and around staff reduction in numbers. So they are still in here as either we're on track to achieve those, we've achieved those. So that's how they're being measured through this dashboard. And just because we're also measuring this in our SODA tool, our P-SODA tool, our project management piece of software. So benefit owners are still required to report within that system as well. This is just to summarise, I guess, and provide a as high level view as possible of what they look like. But yeah, so so I'm trying to get back to the
and it's probably just another tick against each of those benefits.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that classification might be quite useful from a governance perspective as well.
Absolutely.
Because there was so those ones, but there is the asset management, proactive maintenance that was, I know from a business case perspective, key, and just how we actually track on elements.
Are you thinking that like in the title of the bit you might have 1, 2 or 3 ticks to just show a level of priority, or you're thinking a whole nother column?
I'm just thinking that each of the benefits will speak to either it's a qualitative improvement, so we're doing things better, achieving better quality, or particularly probably just being really clear around where we're actually expecting. There will be some capacity released, which is not cash releasing, but there will be cash generating or cash releasing benefits as well. So just some simple classification of the nature of the benefit that we're actually hunting down. Just a thought reflecting back on.
Definition, yep, I understand. So also within here is room for the for commentary, and so you'll see notes. For example, when you hover over, you'll get notes about where the progress on the benefit will be updated. So, and so I guess if it's a cash releasing benefit, then that would be we're on track or we've achieved. Would those notes would be made in here? I'm not sure how much we want to call out that it's cash releasing, and because that's a change in, that's not a major change, but that's just a change in on the definition or the description of the benefit, and that's an easy enough thing to do if that's what you would consider to be useful.
I don't think you want to be looking at cash releasing benefits every month, just chasing it.
Oh, no.
But
no.
then there should be a period at which you sit down and just do an exercise, and then a period where you repeat the exercise. And some of these, it's quite interesting because I'm not sure whether we're trying to track that activity still happening or track the benefits, because some of these won't change every month.
No.
So there'll be, I don't know if you're making people do things that don't add value or do add value, and whether you want, so I don't know what the cycle, but if it's about saying, well, are we progressing? Yeah, I know it's gone red. That's one thing, but that's almost like project type stuff. If it's the benefit, then, well, have we got the license fees down or not? It's kind of, we sign the licenses and then the answer's there. So I don't know whether you want to do everything every month, but that's up to you guys to decide. But it seems, it seems an interesting, it depends whether you're chasing the benefits to make sure they happen or whether you're trying to measure whether they've happened. They're kind of two different things. And chasing the benefits, you need you need every month to be seeing are we progressing, but has it been achieved? Well, that won't change every month.
No, happy to receive that feedback.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Neville, just a couple of questions, and Janine sort of touched on this. Having not been part of the process of the evaluation for the new system, what I'm expecting in your checklist there are all the key issues in the proposal which convince councillors to vote in favour of putting in the new system. Because to me, we need to be evaluating the key issues that were seen as being important, supporting the logic for change, and that we're now measuring our deliverables against that. So I guess that's my first question. And the second one is that I would like to have seen, and I don't want to create extra work, but to me, the main benefit for the system should be information for management. So it's the way your executive leadership team feel that this system is delivering on their expectations of the information they need to manage more effectively. So, and I'm not sure whether it's possible to capture that in there or not, but that to me, you've got a staff server and they could be included in that. I'd like to see the people responsible for the executive leadership team, their evaluation of where you're at in the journey.
Absolutely understand. And that is, I guess, one of the major benefits that we're expecting to derive from the system once it's functioning the way that it was always intended to. And primarily that's based on our own knowledge and ability to use it the way that it was intended to. And hence why we're focusing so heavily on training to ensure that the right information is being captured the right way so that we can get the reporting back out to give us a state of the nation view of how we're operating across the entire enterprise. And that's a management expectation and a leadership expectation. We have that visibility. Right now, we're getting good financial visibility, but we're not getting the full suite of visibility right across the enterprise.
Yeah, I guess that's my concern, that this is an enterprise-wide system, and the benefits that be gained if it's used as such and not used as a financial management system. It's not. It's providing management information across the whole organisation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's critical. You know, we're now, what are we, nearly 2 years into it? I would expect that to be starting to be felt within the leadership team. If it's not, then do we need to put more resources into the project to get it to that point? Because you're not going to realise the benefits until that happens.
Look, I feel we probably do need more resources going to the project for the right purpose at the right time. And right now we're operating okay with what we've got, but I would not be surprised if we'll need to do some more in the future. And so, for example, our contract we've got with Infor that allows us to do the improvements and the upgrades is capped, and it's on a regular basis in a cycle that we do that work and activity. However, doing any further enhancements beyond that budget is constraining to us. However, we do not want to do enhancements unless we absolutely need to and we understand the risks of doing it. So right now, we're just trying to come to grips with the fundamentals of the system. I think we've got a good grip on it in the financial space. The global HR area, which is our people space, is not there yet. And the burst or the business intelligence component, which is where we'll get all those metrics and analysis from, we're still very much in the elementary stage in terms of our learning and knowledge and understanding of how to use that component. It has been a challenging piece of work to understand and learn, and we still are on that curve. And ultimately, I absolutely understand what you're saying. Let's get the intelligence, the information back to inform and educate the organisation. We just haven't got there yet. And we've got a bit more work to do to be able to get that level of enterprise-wide insight that we know the system is capable of providing.
Question, please. Have you got a user group? Like, I think it's unfortunate that Regional Council was first cab off the rank in New Zealand. And believe me, that increases the degree of difficulty exponentially. You'll appreciate that now. But do you have a user group in New Zealand?
There is, and but I think we're one of the major adopters. So Watercare, for example, are a key user of Infor. Hamilton City Council have got one element. LIC, I believe, has got some components, but we're a full system adopter.
I think that just to back Nev up on that, I think the challenge is there's a lot of councils in New Zealand that use an element of it. But from a technology perspective, quite often they're still in an on-premise state, as opposed to not even single tenant or multi-tenant cloud. So we've made the leap into multi-tenant cloud, which is not the predominant footprint. I think in terms of probably technology across the sector in New Zealand anyway. So there's a limit to that, but there are customers, local government customers in Australia. It's probably got a stronger footprint in councils in Australia, and certainly around some of the key financial applications. There's large industries, large health providers in the States that use the core financial systems that we use. So I guess it's just looking a little bit wider in terms of where that community of interest may be to help build our understanding on exactly what the tool can do. Yeah.
Look, all I can do is encourage you to talk to other people, other users, because that's your greatest source of information.
Yep.
So, okay.
Thank you for the advice.
Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you, Neville. I mean, the last time we talked about this, you know, it was quite a report that was difficult to read, and there was a lot of negative sentiment going through. And we said, you know, we need to sort this out. And we heard that, you know, there's a strategy being put in place to sort it out. I see this is more neutral to read compared to leaning toward the negative. And you're asking for feedback here, but. For me, it's largely, well, a dashboard is probably good for keeping track and such. I'd want to see trends come to us here so that we can see whether we are happy with the pace of change, because that would then spark the conversations on what resourcing levels we're happy to unlock to change the pace, essentially. Because I do wonder whether, you know, because of the level that we're happy to invest, you know, last time, long-term plan time, we're obviously making it fit to that, but you're constantly learning new things, and this can be a 5, 10, 20-year transition, or this can be a 3-year transition, depending on how you divvy up the money. And you guys know best how much risk there is to staff satisfaction and all these other things that we're trying desperately to work on. So yeah, for me, it's mainly trends. And when I see the comment from the survey around leave and timesheets, and I think about how that applies to everyone in the organisation. I mean, we're still at the level of just looking at the whole picture, but you know, to me, something that every single employee deals with, I would hope is quite a high thing, because that's something they're dealing with every day. So just kind of putting a little bit of emphasis, because somebody made the effort to write the comment.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's actions happening and
Yeah, which I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Bruce.
Yeah, forgive me if I'm out of touch because I'm the alternate and I don't come to this meeting all the time, but can you comment on, is there still resistance amongst the staff to make this shift?
I think there is in some areas, but it's in pockets. Not every staff member uses the system beyond the timesheet piece, hence why you've seen that sentiment come through. And there's some areas within the organisation where they have to use it quite heavily, obviously in the finance area, but also in asset management, in the ICM area and RUD to a reasonable degree. So there's pockets where people are using it more than others, and they're using more complex pieces of the technology than others. So you're getting pockets of discontent, and some of it's around their ability to use it, their understanding of it and how to use it and use it the right way. And some of it is around their own resistance to having to do things slightly differently now, and more of a reliance on using technology than they may have had in the past. So yeah, there's a number of a lot of variables in this thing that we're starting to get a better understanding of, and we pick it up a lot too through the training that we deliver. So every management team is going through this training across the organisation right now to understand the budget management responsibilities, which have a different requirement around them now. Our expectation of budget managers has changed. They're expected, they're more diligent, they're more focused, that they are more accountable, and that the reporting around their budget management is going to be more regular. So these are things that aren't necessarily stuff that they've become accustomed to over time, and so that also fuels some of the sentiment around being resistant. But I think our approach is working in respect to the education strategy combined with the improvement strategy.
If I may, I'll just a couple of supplementaries. So, I mean, is the provider responsive to? I mean, what I want to know is, well, first of all, how smart do you have to be in IT to really make use of this tool? And is it something that you can train people to, or is it beyond the realms of the normal person? It needs a specialist to operate. Yeah, and how responsive is the provider to when issues like the, is it the leave and leave area is not working for the staff, how responsive is the provider to adapting or changing the process?
I think we've renegotiated a really positive relationship with the provider. I think there may have been a period where we were talking across each other, but I truly believe we've gotten to a far clearer position. The CIO has been quite proactive in that regard. And I guess the area manager probably wasn't as responsive as we would like him to be, but I think based on the feedback we've given to his head office that he's changed his tune somewhat and is a lot more open and amenable to having constructive discussions. I think we've also done better ourselves in terms of triaging and managing the tickets that have been coming through from staff, which alert us to where they have problems and issues. And we've been able to focus the team a little bit more on how to address those, which ones we can fix in-house, which ones need to go back to the provider, and to have clarity around how we use the investment that we have with the provider to resolve tickets on our behalf, to make sure that we're using them well, and our expectations of the provider are that they step up to the plate and deliver on that expectation. In terms of the utility of the system from a user perspective, it has a higher level of complexity associated with it in some regard, because we're expecting more detail and more information than we would have traditionally gathered. But it's all teachable, and that's our focus, is around providing the teaching and providing the collateral, the learning collateral that's current, accurate, and accessible in real time. So these are all elements of supporting our staff to be able to do their job. That has a cost associated with it and an effort associated with it, which is quite profound. And so that is requiring us to think about our process and systems around how we support that educational tool development stuff and provide it to our staff, and we have confidence it's accessible, it's correct, and it's up to date, which requires, I guess, a focus that we hadn't really recognised previously. But that's becoming more and more apparent as we deliver the training, and more staff start self-helping. They need to know that they can access that self-help material and be confident in its accuracy.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can I have one last go at this?
Sure.
It's helping my education. So is the system modular enough that if it proved that the leave booking or whatever it is that's not working well for staff is in fact a dud, can you exit module by module?
We haven't considered it. We haven't considered walking away. Well, I don't believe we've considered backing out of the system, and we're committed. We have a lot of sunk investment in this, and we believe that the value proposition that we invested in at the beginning is still valid and still strong. Mm-hmm. So our focus has been on building our capacity and capability to utilise it, and to ensure that the system we've got is fit for purpose for our needs. With our goal is to minimum customisations. Our principle has always been adopt, not adapt. And so that's a core principle. When we start adapting the system, we start to run into problems that are significant and have a long tail on them. So so there's a lot of power in this system. It can't be underestimated. It's like having this amazing car, I don't know, a Porsche or something, and not knowing how to drive it. You know, we're still learning where to put the key. Well, we've got beyond finding the key, where to put the key. We now know how to turn it on and probably crawl along in first gear a little bit, but we want to get it out on the highway and open it up. But that'll take some more training and some more driver awareness.
Thank you.
Neville, just note, like, some of the issues that are called out are not actually issues within the Infor system themselves. They are integration between still some external systems. So the leave, for example, is in our payroll system. But so looking at opportunities for how that integration is working, the
Yeah.
point in time at which timesheets are calling that integration. So quite easy, well, I say easy, some clear actions that we can take that will get rid of some of these challenges that staff are facing. But it's just doing them in a sensible,
Yeah.
prioritised
No, that-
order.
Yeah, that's fine.
But just to increase the
I'm asking, the que-
usability.
I'm asking the questions on the basis of experience in a bigger institution, which has some of the same problems.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
yeah,
And I think one of the
Yeah.
points that Nev raised in terms of that adopt, not adapt, that's where some of the change management and the change hurdle comes, because we've come from a legacy of we'll change the application because it's our on-premise installation of something to how we want to work. Whereas we're asking people to change the way that they work in line with the functionality that the system's delivering.
yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You. Any further questions? Oh, Robbie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on from what Bruce was talking about, is a part of the issue that, well, I've heard from staff in the field with ICM, is they have multiple devices that they have to operate, and maybe it's not a single, because everyone used to, by the sound, it used to do everything through their iPhone. Now it's a situation where there's multiple devices that they have. Is that right or not? That's just what I've heard in the field. So is that where some of the pushback's coming from?
There is a cluster of staff within the field who we understand have got their own unique challenges using the system. And I've met with one of them a fortnight ago, and he gave me a comprehensive list of the things that he felt were challenging for field workers. We feel that group of staff is probably in the region of probably 40 staff may fit within that criteria. We've currently got 2 business analysts working with that staff member to try and understand the scope and the scale of what their problem is. And that's about breaking it down to understand, is it a process, a way that they're doing it? Is it generally a systems issue? Is it a training issue? So we haven't got that information back yet, but that's the approach we're taking. So I do understand the issues you're raising there, Robbie. It's a sentiment that's being strongly felt by some. That
Yeah, and to that, like I just, when I went up Coromandel the other day, Emily McDonald said there's a staff member now that's working with Infor to help with the process. Is that right?
Yeah, so they've taken a unique approach up in Whitianga, where they have taken a staff member who's in a completely different role to help them to understand. Applaud them on the initiative. I'm not sure it's actually going to help them, because that means that the purpose of the system, which is about budget managers with budget responsibility, actually managing their budgets responsibly. And so passing that on to a third party to do on your behalf is not achieving that outcome. So I'm not sure that is, and only discovered that by going up to visit on this. And I was quite surprised to hear that we had taken a staff member for that function. And therefore, the managers were not being required to learn.
Okay, we're just the interesting, just because it's all part of making this system work, and it's getting the right mixture to get it to happen. Yeah.
Yes, very much.
I think we've given this a fair push around. Is the committee happy with the second part of the resolution? Is it specific enough? Going to be happy to leave the minutes to cover that.
Like I said, I find the dashboard might be perhaps more useful when you're using it as opposed to for the reporting here for me, but I've given that feedback.
Yep.
So I have no issue with the dashboard itself. It looks
Subject to my comments relating back to the original justification for the software. To me, that's critical. So that we haven't lost sight of why this was approved to be installed in the organisation.
So would you prefer to see that explicitly in recorded?
No, it's captured in the sort of
Yeah.
feeding the dashboard. That's the passive.
Yeah.
If it helps, we could add a specific section to the dashboard that relates to management confidence or executive confidence, if that, in terms of the data and the insights.
Yeah, look, I'll probably freshen it.
Yeah. Okay.
Just trying, sorry to delay the process, but in terms of the objectives that have been set, if you see in section 8 of the report, those were the interpretation that I guess I've placed on what the benefits that were presented to you in December were intended to, so I've consolidated them. So things like improved decision-making and efficiency and asset management being a high-level objective statement, streamlining our procurement process, so trying to keep it quite high-level and summarise what I believe was the intended outcomes across 7 dimensions, reducing costs and efficiency in information systems, enhancing financial reporting and decision-making, streamlining HR processes and reducing administrative workload, and increasing staff satisfaction of the processes and systems that they have to work within. So I guess that was my attempt to take 33 benefits that were all quite eclectic and not unstructured, but not consolidated into 7 consolidated areas with high-level statements about these are what we were intending to achieve. These were the objectives around why we built this system. And then these are the things that would indicate to us that we are achieving that objective. Obviously subject to your feedback today and how we might incorporate that into those measures or those indicators. However, I believe those are the 7 key outcome areas that the organisation was looking at when it purchased the system.
I think, Nev, the only other area that I recall from the benefits analysis through the business case was that overarching decision quality. So that probably speaks in some ways to that what you've proposed around executive confidence.
Measure around confidence from an executive
in terms of the information to actually be making high quality decisions that are well informed.
Yeah,
is probably the end point of all of the sub measures that you've got there.
Happy to do that.
Right. Do we have a mover and seconder for the resolution? Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jennifer. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Neville. Annual leave management. Welcome.
Good morning. I'll take the report as read and point you to a few areas of interest as we go through. You'll see that we've had quite a decrease in the annual leave balances, which is great news. Obviously, the Christmas period does help with that, but we'll continue to put efforts into that space. It's also good to see that the sick leave has declined as well, and hopefully that'll be sustained and we'll bring that average down because it did get up to 6.1, and we're keen to stay below that benchmark of 5 if we can. Onto the summary of risk review changes, you'll see the 3 areas that were reviewed and the outcomes of those. I just wanted to point you to a couple of points through those. Under the vehicle use, one of the key things is really ensuring that we have fit for purpose vehicles and that the staff are aware of how to select those when they're out in the field. So it starts right at the procurement stage of buying the correct vehicle and then the staff being informed and trained to ensure that they're taking the right vehicle out into the field, wherever it may be, for the tasks that they have in hand. Working around water, we had small changes, I guess, in that space, and I think that we do that quite well. Our SPI directorate stands out specifically for this. They do an absolutely fantastic job in the working around water space, and they have a level of 5 level of competency around that, from really entry level and learning how to operate right through to being able to assess and ensure people are safe out there. So that was a bit of an update in that space. And last time we discussed the EAP usage, you'll see that that has come back a bit. Now we've had our Rongoa Māori adopted into the organisation, and people have been utilising that. You'll see that we've had 7 over the period. The EAP usage is beginning to normalise again, but there's a graph towards the end of the document that shows a comparison between the sick leave and EAP usage, and you can see there is some correlation there. It's quite tricky to be able to directly correlate, because there are a number of things in sick leave that can't be compared to EAP. One of those would be time off for dependents, and we don't have that kind of data. So while it's interesting to look at, and we'll continue to monitor that and see if there's anything that we can learn, we can't have direct correlation there. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Stu, I meant to raise this issue yesterday. We heard earlier on about, and you raised it with us yesterday, about the Auckland Wharf CE, and my informant's just come back into the room, so I can he can assist with this one. But do we monitor major incidents with contractors?
We do. It's a big part of our work, to ensure that we are really across that.
So I'm reliably informed that one of our contractors had a major incident on one of the sites, a Kerikeri site. Robbie, you've got more first-hand information than I have, so you might want to take it up from there.
So now
Just a truck rollover, yeah.
Yeah, so that's been really well covered, I guess, by the staff that were involved. We've had a fantastic investigation there with SHIC. Some of our engineers have been involved along with the health and safety team. They have provided a very comprehensive report, and the learnings have been shared. So that was a good one to pick up.
Hello. Stu, around the annual leave side of things, it's really cool that it has dropped so much in size. I'm mindful that the winter will creep it onto a longer list again, I imagine. I was wondering, is there a way that you could help? Do you help the directorates highlight? I'm trying to understand whether the members of this list are repeat offenders as such, or whether, is there quite a lot of dynamic movement in the list, or is it just that we always have it and it's the same people?
Yeah.
What's your sense? Because you know names and I don't, and that's perfectly good.
It's always a challenge in every organisation, this, to keep the balances down. And
which way are we leaning? Are we leaning more like it's a dynamic, always changing list, or it's always tends to be the same kind of names?
It's a bit of a mix, to be honest. You have people that enjoy work too much, possibly, and find it hard to leave. And then I guess, as we go through the cadence of the year with busy periods in different directorates, the ability to take leave in busy times isn't there, so there's a bit of a combination of that. But I think, it's pleasing to see that it's coming down, and we'll hopefully manage to keep it as low as we possibly can.
I think, Stu, the practicality is where you've got staff with really high leave balances, it's really hard to get them down and keep
That's
them
what
down.
I'm thinking. That's
So I think there's probably a small core of people, and then the other ones will move around as, depending on that seasonality. But where you get to a high leave balance,
it's hard
trying to actually find the time to,
So that
address that is quite challenging.
I totally appreciate that, and I appreciate that your answers are consistent.
They are.
Of course they are. But I guess what that led me to want to ask is, are there some individual, like that core group of people where it's really hard to get them down, where maybe that becomes at some point a trigger or a flag that that role might have either too much reliance on it, hence they don't feel they can take, sorry, I'm doing quotation marks with my fingers, they don't feel that they can take the leave because it's RM reform time, or it's, you know, whatever is constantly being thrown at us. And there's another way we might be able to build extra capacity next to them, or does that kind of get looked at or flagged so that it can get looked at
Yeah,
by the
it
CEO?
does, and that really comes back to our management and, you know, the 122 managers that we've got across the organisation, and ensuring that they've got their finger on the pulse with their staff.
Yeah.
You know, there are busy times for people, and when things ramp up and people haven't been able to take leave, it does become a challenge, like Janine has said. But we do have levers that we can pull. You know, we can require people to take leave. So if we're aware that stress levels are, you know, becoming too much and leave hasn't been taken, we can action leave to be taken.
But we might not, because we
That's
want that
right.
work done, right?
Yeah, that's right. But there is a balance. You know, we do have
Totally.
a strong
I won't go on
desire to
about it.
ensure
It's just-
well-being and care. So yeah, it's a good
Just-
point. But
Just another level that I thought
Yeah.
I could delve now that I've got nothing else to critique because the list's gone down.
Right.
So I've just got a general question. In a very large neighbouring unitary council, aggression and violence is by far the highest incident rate, like that.
yes.
And you sort of skipped over it in the risks, so clearly wasn't top of mind as a big issue for you.
Yeah, it is top of mind for us. It's one of our critical risks there, and we do monitor it quite closely. We were just talking about it yesterday in the council meeting. As one of our contractors, Kinetic, they have pretty much daily occurrences of, you know, verbal abuse. There have been a couple of assaults in the last quarter, and we're working on that. In our own employee base, we have many people that are out there interacting with different people, members of the public, and we have quite a expansive package around that for de-escalation training and everything else, management support that goes along with it. We probably maybe 8 months ago now, had a look at the trend of that over the past 5 years to see if it was actually increasing or not. But we found that it was a pretty similar number of instances per year over the last 5 years. So we're pleased that it's not getting worse, but we certainly have it front of mind and have the support mechanisms around that. So it's a good one to pick up.
Okay. Thank you very much. A good report. Do we have a mover and seconder? Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Bruce. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Policy review schedule update.
Multitask, not working for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So regular schedule of policy reviews. The one within the remit of the committee is our legislative compliance policy. So updates to that are provided through the track changes copy of the policy that's included in the agenda. Reasonably minor changes, correcting some roles and responsibilities, reporting for overdue action plans through that legal compliance process, and changes just to reflect current legislation.
Any questions? Do I have a mover and seconder to receive the report? Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jennifer. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Gifts and personal benefits register.
You can ask them questions.
It does feel very different down this end. So good morning, everyone. I'm happy to take this report as read, and I will just highlight for the benefit of the committee that the report essentially is split into two parts. We set out the members' requirements under Section 54 of the Local Government Act, where they must declare their interests, and we provide an update on those declarations. The other part of the report is where we report what we've found in as far as company directorships and charities registration goes, which was a recommendation from the internal auditor. And from there, I'm happy to take any questions.
Just hang on a sec. Where they've got blanks, does that mean they have not provided a return?
As in the gifts column in paragraph 11, that's correct,
Page
yes.
32.
Yes.
I thought the requirement of the public sector was that you had to get a return, even if it was a nil return. I think the OAG, when they visited a couple of years ago.
I would have to follow up on that. It's quite interesting in that there's multiple pieces of legislation and policy in play. Obviously, we've got LAMIA, we've got the Local Government Act, and then directives from the offices of the regulators. And we try to ball all that together. But the members are prompted monthly to provide that information, and we don't beat them with a stick, obviously, if we don't get it.
Okay.
And we do just make the assumption that they have received no gifts on the basis of no declaration.
It's fine. Right. Sorry, Robert.
I've received no gifts since being a councillor anyway, so.
All right. We have a mover and seconder, please. All? Chris, all in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much.
Nice, thank you.
And now we come to the staff gifts and
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So schedule provided there for the gifts, personal benefits that staff have declared for that 6-month period to the 31st of December 2024. So happy to take any
questions? No, can I have a mover and seconder, please? Paul, Jennifer, all those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much. Key projects activity update.
Can I just, before Greg starts, with the leave of the chair, just thinking in terms of the bit of the conversation that was had around the public transport contract procurement, mentioning to the chair whether that is something that this committee would like to have included as one of the key projects. It's got a reasonably long tail to it, but the contract value will be high. They're very long-term contracts, so you know, exposure for council is up there. So just a thought in terms of keeping some sort of risk and assurance oversight on that process as well.
Just asked, there was a recommendation that we have an independent person on that panel. Is that being followed through?
I'm sure it has been, yes.
I don't, I mean, it'd be good to have it come through, I think. It keeps us, or at least some of us, abreast of it, you know, because the transport governance often sits more with the TA sides. And so there's a few people in our council who really track the transport things, and considering the substantial amount, and there's just no harm to having it there.
And I don't go tripping up over other committees, but I think this
Yeah.
committee brings a unique or a
agree.
different perspective to it. So I'll take that with, I'll raise that with Phil King and just see how we can best, what the right timing for that is.
And maybe what the right frequency is.
Yeah.
If it's not going to change much in the frequencies we have for our other updates, maybe it's just every second meeting or something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Morena, everyone. So I am here to speak to you about our CITIF Motu Karaka trial project, which is underway. So this is on page 242 of your agenda. So the project has well and truly got some wind behind it now over the last couple of months following some earlier discussions before Christmas, but it certainly is still timing is a challenge. Particularly because I guess it's a conversation that we are navigating with the community, and it ultimately is up to the community to navigate that conversation and get to the point where we want to. So we've held 2 community panel meetings, which have been well established now. But there was certainly an acknowledgement at the last community panel meeting that it's more realistic to look at September as a timing for having a short list of investment options going forward. So, and that was really acknowledgement of the different discussions that need to be had, both at a community panel level and within the technical advisory group, which sits under that panel. We're doing everything that we can to stay ahead of things as staff. So making sure we're effectively a step ahead of that community discussion to make sure that we're ready in terms of testing things such as the multi-criteria analysis framework, getting together the precious state response report as well, and just making sure we're ready to help the community when it's ready for the help it needs, and also taking every opportunity to expedite the project to try and move things along as quickly as possible. We are very cognizant that there is a very real risk to council around the level of service that's provided by this particular asset at the moment. And in that regards, we've been working with some of the direct beneficiaries around some interim solutions, such as some temporary pumping. So we've placed an order for 2 new temporary pumps, which will be available for this and other catchments in the area, should they be required during heavy rainfall. Not so much to supplement the existing pump station, but just to enable some improved drainage in the area. Maybe we'll leave it there, Mr. Chairman. Take questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Just for some of the commentary you've got in here about going forward, budget availability could compromise the quality of some of the outputs, and further down you've got reducing the deliverables from the project for this financial year. Is that mainly just relating to needing to push things out a couple of months?
Yeah,
or
so
is it actual quality of the outputs?
So the quality of the sort of trial output itself won't be compromised.
Okay.
So the focus is more about, so the initial project was looking at also revising the sort of framework based on lessons learned,
Yes.
provide a third version, and also preparing ourselves for the long-term plan. This particular project is focusing on this trial and getting that concluded, with the latter tasks, they'll be undertaken separately and at a later date, still to line up with the long-term planning process. But at the moment, the real focus of the project is to get this trial done, and get an outcome for the community.
Fair enough. But you're talking about the long-term plan, but there is obviously the annual plan coming, of which lots have been set, but should there be something required, it will come through the CE submission. I guess I'm thinking ahead that, maybe there is a CEO KPI that's on this topic again. And I worry that if things aren't finished in time, then it's hard to craft that KPI.
And I think the next logical step will be to think about regionally, how do we tackle this?
That's right.
The intent of this trial was always to see how it went in a live catchment for the first time. And then use the learnings to look at how we regionally roll out this approach to managing our infrastructure. And so I think in terms of
that was part of the KPI to come up with a schedule for the rest of the region. Will
It
that
was.
still be able to be done by the end date of the KPI? Which I
no, it
think,
won't be. No, and so that's been acknowledged through our reporting since probably December.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We did suggest an alternative performance indicator in that regard,
Yes.
but it's stayed as it is.
It's more how we can come up with, perhaps, should the council want to, and I think they have a big interest in this topic, another KPI without having that information that we thought we would have by that date. So if you could turn your mind to that as the
Oh, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
for me, the main challenge is around actually regionally, how do
So-
we apply this approach? And also integrate it with our existing community adaptation work that's happening with district councils, because effectively sort of is community adaptation,
yes.
just in a slightly different context.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I see CITIF as a major risk for this organisation. What, 100 plus infrastructure projects that need to be done over the next 20 years? Each one of them takes the 5 years that this one takes. You work out how long we're going to be going through the process. So I'll leave it there.
Any further questions? Well, so this is the trial. Well, but once we understand, once we get this sorted, we can do the next ones faster. Because I have that concern that this just seems to have been on the agenda for a long time for a decision. How do we,
I mean,
how do we speed it up next time?
Yeah, so the issue itself has been on our books for a while, but the trial has been underway this financial year. In terms of moving forward with the rollout of the SIDF, the point of the trial is done. Well, how can we do it the most efficiently and effectively? Because we do need to strike the right balance. We do have very real issues with our infrastructure that the community needs us to respond to. The whole point of the SIDF is that we respond to those issues in a way that's sustainable in the long term. So we're not setting up our communities up for more challenging times over the next few decades, because we do have to think about decades when we're looking at these kind of investments.
I would like to take issue with that last comment from Greg. You were in the room, Robbie, when we had a presentation from one of Greg's staff that introduced SIDF to us, which was, what, 18 months, 2 years ago? There was an agreement at the time that we'd have spades in the ground, which was documented, minuted, 2026, October 2026. And we're not going to finish the SIDF process for another, I'm told now, September. There is a 12-month lead time on delivery, the equipment, assuming it's assumed that we're going to go ahead with it. You know, you just work it out. This thing will be 2030 before the project is completed, if it goes ahead. So that is an unacceptable timeframe as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, Robbie, sorry.
Yeah, I understand where Chris is coming from. I think if CIVIV is to be used in the future, it's got to be not just the CIVIV process. The other linking things that come into building and everything else must be linked into it far earlier. And I know not predetermining. So it's not do this bit, then click and then do the next, and then it's losing momentum all the time. It needs to be a process that flows. And I hope that's the learnings that's going to come out of this to speed the process up. That's what's going to have to happen, because if we go to the community, ask what they want, then we got to put in a design and scope it, and then can you afford it? And you've gone through all that process and it got to the end and it might be too damn expensive. That's the bit that's frustrating. And
there'll be options, I imagine.
yeah, there'll be options, I understand, but
So you won't
it's
lose.
still, it's a 3-year process and you still haven't got a spade in the ground. That's the bit that Chris is getting to. So I think when we get this process finished, there's going to have to be a lot better thinking of how we're going to implement it. And I'm not disrespecting. I think that's the thing, is how we implement it in the future is going to be the most important bit.
Look, I mean, fundamentally, this project is about helping the community to make the right long-term decision. I mean, that's what it comes down to, better long-term outcomes for the community, because they're the ones that receive benefits from the work that we do. They're the ones that provide the funding. And so that's really critical.
Yeah, and I totally agree. But I think the thing is, in the future, we got to plan to have everybody in the room and make that decision-making process much shorter and faster. So we've already, instead of us getting everyone ducks in a line, the ducks are in a line before we start the process. And that's the bit I think that I'm trying to explain. And I'm not just trying to say anyone doesn't know what they're doing, but the learnings from this should be all the bits that we haven't done well till now, and then we can smooth it out in the future.
Jennifer.
So if I can round back to where I started and where we've gone, if it's for this particular project, which has a long history, but the trial is relatively recent, if we could take the learnings from that, because we can't change the fact that the decision for this particular trial is going to have the timeline that it has, but our decisions on when we start the next trial or plan to start the next trial, that work can come forward, because I think probably the 80-20 rule applies, that we've learned 80% of the lessons already, and we don't need to wait till September to get 100% in order to rewrite sort of 2 or 3.0 or have a report come back to us that considers how does it go forward if we are to merge the community planning with the, that if that was where we were going, So I'm just going to challenge that we try and bring the other stuff forward, even though we haven't completed this trial, so that we can do I think we'll get some good support for a CE KPI in this kind of space.
Yeah, and we're certainly not standing still in some other areas. So for example, the Whangarino Action Plan is adopting some of the principles behind the CITF as well, which is adaptive planning. And we are looking to apply those principles into some of the other community adaptation projects. So one is Thames at the moment. We're particularly involved right now. And again, that's an opportunity to start to have that sort of thinking in behind our decisions going forward with those projects.
Yeah. And please bring the requests for resourcing to real request there. Thanks.
I just want to make the comment, it's important not just to point at the sort of process and blame it, because it's part of risk management as well. Because if there is not major advanced planning, and if there is not major community buy-in and stakeholder buy-in, there's a different sort of risk. So we heard about one sort of risk, which is not delivering the pump. The other risk includes things like legal challenge. Just wanted to remind people of that.
Yes. Obviously, there's a lot of learnings that could come out of this exercise, and I think it's important that they are reviewed and the learnings are incorporated moving forward. Otherwise, what will be gained? No. Yep.
Good afternoon. So you will have received the report there. I guess I'll take that as read, but some aspects I'd like to emphasise would be around the product build that Datacom are undertaking, and they're providing that product in 4 drops. So you will have seen in the report that it notes there are some delays with some of the functionality in those drops, but Datacom are adding in extra resource to progress that build more efficiently at their own cost, I should add, because it's a fixed price build. Also, we've got PAT, so product acceptance testing, happening at the moment with 7 of our staff. They started that on the 28th of January and they go through to the 20th of May. So it's a complex piece of work, working through the scenarios, the test scripts, providing feedback. And so we're grateful for the staff energy and expertise. So that's drawn from, there are 30 or so testers from across the 10 councils. So we have 7 of those. So the product and the PAT are building towards the pilot. So Otago being the pilot, they start the implementation 29th of May 2025 through to the 8th of July 2026. So Otago certainly have a heightened awareness of their responsibility and the preparation that they're going through, and all the other councils are looking at how we can support them, because their success is our success, and that what we learn from that will flow on to the other implementations. So those are, I guess, 3 key things occurring in the
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And what's the next one?
Freshwater policy review. So Tracy May is currently away on leave. So we've got Joe Bromley, who's Tracy's principal advisor, and Bruce McAuliffe, who I'm sure you'll all know is manager of our resource management policy team.
Kia ora koutou. So whilst I'm across this project and was across PC1 as well, I'm going to hand over to Bruce, because the devil is in the detail, obviously, and he can talk to any aspects of the report. But also I want to highlight we've had the RM reform come through this week, and so we have been considering the implications of that on giving effect to the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management. And Bruce can talk a little bit more about that as well. There is a significant paper just on the RM reform coming to the Strategy and Policy Committee, which I believe is in a week and a half or 2 weeks. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Bruce McCall, Manager, Resource Management Policy. If I take my report as read, we've been proceeding with the freshwater policy review in line with Council's direction from the June 2024 Council meeting, keeping the whole project very focused on the key issues for the region, the key attributes for the region. So, at the moment, we're working with our river iwi partners. We've got first meeting of the Whitewater Committee coming up on the 4th of April. We've had numerous meetings with our river iwi partners, the working group, Te Raupu Hautu. We've met a few times now and working very closely with them. Yeah, and as Joe just mentioned, the government's announcement earlier this week, we are looking at how that affects the project and what implications that might have for us with the announcement of 2 new acts and one plan for the region and how our freshwater plan will considering those implications of that at the moment. That is one of the issues that we've highlighted and very much across. Just perhaps one of the other issues, the approval to commence. We've received approval to commence so far from 4 of our 5 river iwi partners, just waiting on Waikato Tainui's approval, and we'll be discussing that, actively discussing that with them.
Yeah, good update, thanks. Yeah, in the report I was confused because you had your issues for attention with the last review date of October last year. So
yeah,
it was an issue then, sure.
Yes.
That's great to hear that we've had, that we're waiting on all but one. Is there a touch point in place before the 4th to get that?
Yeah, we'll be touching base with our Raupu Hautu colleagues, or at least at the 4th of April.
Because that's something we can maybe help with, because I mean, we sit on the JMA with them.
Yeah, quite possibly. There is a JMA meeting coming up with Waikato Tainui the next few weeks. Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. All right, I'll touch base with you after this, but in case there's more we could do. But really happy that, major milestone coming next Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No. Thank you very much. Can I have a mover and seconder to see the report? Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Chris. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the open agenda. And I now need a resolution to move into public excluded. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Chris. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you.
All the everythings.